What can a poor boy with no formal education, no connections, and no money possibly offer the world? For most, the answer would be nothing. But for Henry Royce, the answer was Rolls-Royce, a name that would come to define perfection. In today's story, you'll discover the incredible true journey of how one boy from a struggling family became the mastermind behind one of the most luxurious car brands in the world. This is not just a story about engineering or cars. It's a story about belief, ambition, and the power of building something with your own hands. So sit back, listen carefully, and get ready to experience a tale that proves greatness doesn't come from where you start. It comes from how far you're willing to go. What if I told you that one of the world's most luxurious and powerful car brands was created by a boy who had to leave school at the age of 9? A boy who had no money, no connections, and no special opportunities, but had a dream, a strong will, and hands that never stopped working. This is not a story of instant success. It's a story of quiet determination, long days of labor, and a belief that even the poorest person can build something great with persistence. This is the beginning of the incredible journey of Henry Royce, the man behind Rolls-Royce. Henry Royce was born on March 27, 1863, in a small village in England called Alwalton. His family was not rich. In fact, they were very poor. Henry was the youngest of 5 children. His father ran a small flour mill, but the business was not doing well. Money was always a problem in their home. Still, as a little boy, Henry was curious. He loved to take things apart and see how they worked. While other children played with toys, Henry played with tools, old pieces of wood, bits of iron, or broken devices that he could open and study. He was not interested in games. He wanted to understand how the world worked. But life was not easy. When Henry was just 4 years old, his family moved to London, hoping to find better chances. Instead, life became even harder. His father's business failed completely, and the family fell into deep poverty. There was often not enough food. The children had to help in any way they could. And then, when Henry was only 9, his father died. The loss of a parent is difficult at any age, but for Henry, it also meant the end of his education. There was no money to keep him in school. He had to work to help his family survive. So, at the age of 9, Henry began working as a newspaper boy. He delivered newspapers in the early morning and late evening. He also worked at the post office, delivering telegrams by foot. It was hard work, often in cold and rain, and the pay was very small. But Henry never complained. He kept going. Even though he had to leave school, he didn't stop learning. Every night when the day's work was done, he read books. He studied math, science, and machines. He didn't have a teacher. He taught himself. Henry believed that knowledge was the key to a better future. And even though life had taken away his classroom, it could not take away his mind. When he was 14, something happened that would change his life. He got an apprenticeship at the Great Northern Railway. This was a big opportunity for a poor boy. He would not earn much, but he would learn how machines worked, how engines were built, how parts fit together, how metal was shaped and used. Henry worked with older engineers and mechanics. At first, they didn't notice him. He was just a quiet boy with wide eyes and dirty hands. But slowly, they began to see something special. Henry paid attention to every detail. He didn't just follow orders, he asked questions. He stayed longer than required just to see more, learn more, practice more. He didn't talk much, but his actions spoke clearly. He was serious, focused, and always trying to do better. Even when he made mistakes, and he made many in the beginning, he didn't give up. He fixed them and remembered the lessons. The railway job was not easy. Henry had to stand for hours, carry heavy tools, and work in noisy, dirty conditions. But he didn't mind. He was finally close to the machines he had dreamed about. Every day, he learned something new. Every day, he took one small step toward becoming an engineer. While other boys his age were still in school, Henry was learning from the world itself. From steel and steam, from engines and bolts, from work that required both strength and intelligence. He began to dream, not just of building machines for others, but of creating his own. He wanted to start a business. He wanted to design machines that were better than anyone else's. He wanted to build things that worked perfectly, smoothly, beautifully. But for now, he had to wait. He needed more experience, more money, more understanding. So he continued to work. He moved from job to job, always choosing places where he could learn more. Each new job added a skill. Each new boss saw his talent, and slowly people began to respect the name Henry Royce. Still, he remained modest. He lived in small rooms, ate simple meals, and saved every penny he could. He never wasted time. When others went to the pub to drink or laugh, he stayed in the workshop, turning metal and making machines. He believed that success did not come from luck but from effort. He believed that even without money or education, a person could rise if they worked harder than anyone else. And so, Henry continued, one day at a time, one tool at a time, one dream held tightly in a young man's hands. The journey was still long. The future was still unknown. But already the foundation had been built. From a small boy with no father, no school, and no comfort came a worker with a vision. A dream that would one day change the world of engineering and luxury forever. Henry Royce's hands were no longer the hands of a boy. They were the hands of a skilled young man who had learned to work with steel, sweat, and patience. But something inside him wanted more than just working on other people's machines. He wanted to create his own. By the early 1880s, Royce had learned enough to begin imagining his future outside of someone else's company. He had saved a small amount of money. And more importantly, he had saved an even greater amount of knowledge and experience. After working for different engineering companies, Royce finally decided to take a risk. In 1884, he started a small business with a friend, Ernest Claremont. The business was called F.H. Royce and Company. It was located in Manchester, a city full of industry, noise, and opportunity. The company was small, just a tiny workshop in the beginning, but it had something special, Henry's vision. They didn't build cars in the beginning. They made small electrical items, bells, dynamos, and cranes. Every product they made showed careful design and perfect detail. Royce would not accept anything unless it was the best he could build. His workers quickly learned that if something was only good enough, it was not good enough for Henry Royce. He would take apart a machine and rebuild it from the beginning if it didn't meet his high standards. Customers started to notice this quality. The products might not be the cheapest, but they were reliable. They worked well and they lasted longer. That made Royce's reputation grow. At the time, the world was changing. The late 19th century was a time of speed and invention. Electricity was lighting up cities. Factories were growing. People were dreaming of machines that could move people faster and farther. Royce was fascinated by these changes. He read about cars, still a rare and new invention in the 1890s. At that time, most cars came from Germany or France. They were expensive, noisy, and often broke down. But Royce didn't laugh at these machines. He studied them. He believed that cars could be better, quieter, smoother. He believed that he could make one. By 1903, Royce had saved up enough money and courage to buy his first motor car. It was a small French model made by a company called Decuville. He wanted to learn from it. But the car disappointed him. It was unreliable and poorly built. Where others might have returned it or sold it, Royce did something different. He took it apart piece by piece and examined everything. He studied every part, every joint, every screw. Then he began to think, I can do this better. He worked late into the nights. In his small workshop with limited tools and a tiny team, he began to build his own car. It was not about building something beautiful at first. It was about building something that worked, something dependable, something precise. His first car had a 2-cylinder engine and was ready by 1904. It looked simple, but it was smooth and quiet compared to others. It did not shake and roar like many early cars. It glided. Royce had achieved something remarkable without a big factory or famous investors. Just determination, skill, and belief. People who saw the car were impressed. Even those who knew little about machines could feel that it was different. Better. Royce was not a businessman in the usual sense. He did not think about marketing or show. He believed the machine should speak for itself. If it was excellent, people would notice. And they did. That little workshop in Manchester had just produced a car that would soon lead to one of the most famous car brands in the world. Royce didn't stop with one model. He began making improvements. Each version was better, quieter, more reliable. He tested the cars himself on roads that were often rough and dirty. He drove them through rain, over hills, and across long distances. Every weakness he found, he fixed. Every mistake taught him something new. By mid-1904, Royce had completed 3 cars of his own design. They were not just machines, they were statements. They told the world that even a poor boy from a small village could build something better than the powerful European companies. His dream was beginning to take shape, but he would soon need help to take it to the next level. He needed someone who could take his quiet genius and show it to the world. Someone with style, money, and the right connections. Someone who could see the greatness in his machines and bring it to more people. That person would soon arrive. But for now, in that small workshop in Manchester, Henry Royce had done something extraordinary. He had started not just a business, but a revolution in engineering. And he had done it not with luck, but with learning, labor, and love for perfection. In the spring of 1904, the man who would change Henry Royce's life walked into the picture. His name was Charles Rolls, a wealthy and well-educated aristocrat with a passion for cars and speed. Charles was everything that Royce was not. He was outgoing, well-connected, and known in elite social circles. He had studied at Cambridge University and had traveled across Europe. While Royce had been working with his hands in workshops, Rolls had been racing cars and dealing with wealthy clients. But despite their different backgrounds, these two men shared a powerful connection, a deep love for engineering and innovation. Charles Rolls was always looking for the next best car. He had money and influence, but he was disappointed by the cars he had tested. None of them were reliable enough for his high expectations. He wanted something British, something strong and smooth, something better than the noisy, unreliable cars from France and Germany. And then he heard about a man in Manchester who was quietly building something different. It was a friend of Rolls, Henry Edmonds, who introduced the two men. Edmonds had seen one of Royce's cars and immediately knew it was something special. He arranged a meeting in Manchester between Charles Rolls and Henry Royce. On May 4, 1904, Rolls visited Royce's workshop and saw the car in action. From the moment he sat in the driver's seat, he was impressed. The car was quiet, steady, and smooth. It was unlike anything he had driven before. Rolls didn't need much time to make a decision. He turned to Royce and said, "Mr. Royce, I think we are going to do great things together." Their handshake that day marked the birth of one of the most legendary partnerships in automotive history. Charles Rolls agreed to sell all the cars Royce could make. But he also had a condition: they would carry both their names. The cars would be called Rolls-Royce. It was a perfect match. Royce would stay in the background, focused on engineering and perfecting the machines. Rolls would handle the business side, using his charm and connections to introduce the cars to Britain's wealthiest buyers. They quickly got to work. That same year, they unveiled their first official car, the Rolls-Royce 10-horsepower model. It was a quiet machine with smooth movement and high reliability. People were amazed. Unlike many cars at the time, it didn't rattle or break down easily. Soon, more powerful versions followed. Rolls-Royce cars began to appear at motor shows and attract attention from the press. In 1906, just 2 years after they met, they officially formed Rolls-Royce Limited. The company set a new standard for quality in the automotive world. It wasn't just about making cars, it was about making the best cars. Royce pushed the limits of what a car could be. He introduced the philosophy that would define Rolls-Royce for generations: take the best that exists and make it better. If it doesn't exist, create it. Every bolt, every gear, every curve of the body was crafted with care. Royce never let a car leave the workshop unless it was perfect. This obsession with quality became the soul of the company. Rolls helped bring that soul to the public. He traveled, spoke, and raced the cars in public events, winning admiration wherever he went. It wasn't long before Rolls-Royce became a name that stood for excellence. Their success didn't come from advertising or loud claims. It came from silent confidence proven on the road. When customers drove a Rolls-Royce, they didn't just buy a vehicle, they bought peace of mind. They knew it would not fail them. Even royalty and heads of state began to take notice. A new reputation was being formed, British engineering at its finest. And all of it had started in a small workshop, with a poor boy who dreamed of machines and a rich young man who dreamed of speed. Together, they created more than just a car. They created a symbol of excellence, built not just with money or fame, but with purpose and pride. In the early years of their partnership, Charles Rolls and Henry Royce continued to build not just better cars, but a reputation that would travel far beyond the roads of Britain. People began to speak of the Rolls-Royce as something more than a vehicle. It became a symbol of precision, silence, and strength. By 1907, just a few years after their first meeting, Rolls-Royce released a model that would cement their place in history. It was called the Silver Ghost. The name alone had a kind of mystery to it, but the car itself was even more impressive. It was elegant, quiet, and nearly without vibration. When it moved, it seemed to glide. It didn't just run, it floated. The press quickly gave it a nickname, the best car in the world. It wasn't just praise, it was earned. The Silver Ghost was tested in a trial run of 14,371 miles without a single breakdown. In an era where cars were unreliable and often dangerous, this was revolutionary. It showed that a car could be both powerful and dependable. The Royal Automobile Club witnessed the trial, and it changed the public's perception forever. From that point, people didn't just want a car, they wanted a Rolls-Royce. Orders began to grow, and the company needed to expand. In 1908, Rolls-Royce opened a new factory in Derby to handle the demand. It wasn't just about making more cars. It was about keeping every new car as perfect as the last. Royce made sure the new factory followed the same strict principles he had used in his small Manchester workshop. Nothing left the factory unless it met his exacting standards. The company grew, but quality was never sacrificed. At the same time, Rolls focused on pushing the brand forward. He wasn't just a businessman, he was an adventurer. He believed in the future of flight and was one of the first men in Britain to fly. While Royce stayed on the ground, quietly refining machines, Rolls took to the sky, dreaming of engines that could conquer the air. He knew that the future of transportation wasn't just on roads. It was in the clouds. But despite their growing fame, both men remained focused on their roles. Royce, now often in poor health, worked behind the scenes. He was a perfectionist who often worked until his body gave out. He never let illness stop him from designing, reviewing, and improving. Rolls, on the other hand, traveled and promoted. He raced, he flew, and he spoke proudly of British engineering. It was a partnership built on trust and mutual respect. They didn't compete with each other, they completed each other. Together, they weren't just making better cars. They were building a brand that stood for something greater. Their customers felt that too. A Rolls-Royce wasn't just purchased, it was earned and it was admired. Owners spoke of their cars with pride. They weren't flashy, they were elegant. They weren't loud. They were smooth. The design was never rushed, never forced. It followed a quiet philosophy, do it right or don't do it at all. And so each car became a moving piece of art. Each vehicle told a story of craftsmanship, care, and commitment. From royal families to successful businessmen, the Rolls-Royce became the vehicle of choice for those who valued quality over everything. People didn't just drive them, they trusted them. And in return, Rolls-Royce gave them something rare, a sense of absolute confidence on the road. By the end of the decade, the name Rolls-Royce stood high above all others in the automotive world. And it all started with two men, one in the workshop and one in the driver's seat, sharing the same dream. By the early 1910s, the Silver Ghost had already become a legend, but Henry Royce was not someone who ever settled for success. For him, every achievement was simply a new starting point for further improvement. He continued working behind the scenes, quietly pushing the boundaries of engineering. His goal was always the same, to build the best machine possible. Each new version of the Rolls-Royce car was tested more thoroughly than the last. Engineers were expected to follow his exact instructions, no matter how small the detail. Royce believed that excellence lived in the details, the hidden parts that no customer would ever see. Because in his mind, true quality was not for show, it was a matter of principle. As the world entered a new decade, so did Rolls-Royce. But the future would hold challenges that neither man had fully prepared for. In 1910, tragedy struck. Charles Rolls, the adventurous co-founder, died in a flying accident. He had been flying a Wright biplane during an air show in Bournemouth when the tail broke off midair. The crash took his life instantly. He was only 32 years old. The news shocked the nation. He had been one of the first British men to die in a powered aircraft. His death marked the end of a bold and daring chapter in the company's story. Though Royce was heartbroken, he continued the work they had started together. He knew that Rolls had believed in something bigger than himself. That belief still lived in every car they made. The loss only deepened Royce's commitment to perfecting his craft. While Rolls had represented speed and style, Royce became the quiet force behind the brand. He began designing new cars with even more care, pushing for durability, smoothness, and silence. Soon, the world would need a different kind of machine. World War I broke out in 1914, and countries everywhere turned their industries toward the war effort. For Rolls-Royce, this meant building engines not just for cars, but for airplanes. Royce took on the challenge with his usual seriousness. He worked tirelessly on developing a new aircraft engine, one that would be powerful, reliable, and light. The result was the Eagle engine. It played a crucial role during the war, powering some of Britain's most important aircraft. Pilots trusted it, and it performed under the toughest conditions. It didn't roar like some engines, it purred. That quiet strength saved lives and earned respect. The war transformed Rolls-Royce from a luxury car maker into something more. It became a name trusted in times of peace and times of crisis. After the war, the company returned to car production, but things had changed. The world had seen what British engineering could do. Royce now had a team of young engineers working under him. He taught them to look deeper, to ask harder questions, and to never accept the easy answer. Every new model was an opportunity to do better than before. And yet, despite all the growth and fame, Royce remained humble. He worked quietly from his home in West Wittering, often too sick to visit the factory. But through letters, sketches, and phone calls, he stayed in control. His health may have weakened, but his mind never stopped. He reviewed every design, tested new ideas, and guided the company with a steady hand. By the 1920s, Rolls-Royce was producing some of the most advanced and elegant cars in the world. One of these was the Phantom, a model that would go on to define the brand's identity. It wasn't just about how it looked, it was about how it felt. Royce wanted every part to operate in complete harmony. No noise, no struggle, just smooth performance. The car became a moving sanctuary. People who stepped inside a Phantom didn't just travel, they escaped the outside world. That experience was exactly what Royce had always imagined. His vision was now a reality, but he was not finished. The work of making perfection was never over. Even as age and illness limited his movements, he continued to shape every detail of the brand. He believed that if you created something well, it should last, not just for a few years, but for generations. That was the legacy he was building, and slowly the world began to understand what Royce had known all along. That true greatness isn't built in the spotlight. It's built in the quiet moments when no one is watching. It's built by hands that care and minds that refuse to stop questioning. That's how Rolls-Royce rose from a dream to a legend. And Henry Royce, once a poor boy fixing telegram wires, had now become one of the most respected engineers in the world. Henry Royce spent the final years of his life doing exactly what he had always done, working. Even as his health declined, he remained involved in the smallest details of every new design. He believed that if a machine could be made better, then it must be. And this belief shaped not only the cars and engines, but the very soul of the company. In 1931, Rolls-Royce made another bold move. They acquired Bentley Motors, another British car manufacturer that had fallen into financial trouble. Bentley had a reputation for speed and racing, but under Royce's vision, it would be reborn with the same dedication to quality and precision. This merger was not just about growth. It was about creating a new chapter in British automotive excellence. By this time, Henry Royce was living in West Wittering, working from a studio with large windows that looked out onto peaceful gardens. From there, he continued to sketch designs and give instructions to his team. Even when he was too weak to walk, he would sit near the window, drawing engine parts by hand. His commitment never faded. He believed that success had nothing to do with titles or money. For him, it was about work, honest, detailed, and passionate work. He had never chased fame. He had chased perfection, and he knew that perfection wasn't a moment. It was a process. In 1933, at the age of 70, Henry Royce passed away. His death marked the end of an era, but his legacy was just beginning. His ideas, his discipline, and his vision had been passed down to his engineers, his workers, and to the very culture of Rolls-Royce. The company carried on, guided by the standards he had set. Every decision was still influenced by the quiet man who once delivered telegrams and built dynamos in a Manchester workshop. And as time went on, the world began to realize something. Rolls-Royce was not just about cars. It was about something greater. It was about the belief that doing something well, truly well, was a goal worth pursuing. Whether on the road or in the sky, the name Rolls-Royce came to represent the highest level of trust. In World War II, the company produced the famous Merlin engine, which powered the Spitfire aircraft. That engine played a key role in Britain's defense. It was a machine built on Royce's belief. If you build something with care, it will stand when it's needed most. And it did. After the war, Rolls-Royce continued to expand into aviation, engineering not only vehicles but also the future. The company helped design and produce some of the most advanced jet engines in the world. And through it all, the quiet standards of Henry Royce continued to guide every innovation. Even today, long after his death, his words still echo in the halls of the company. Whatever is rightly done, however humble, is noble. It is this spirit that kept Rolls-Royce from being just another car brand. It became something much more, a promise of excellence, a symbol of what human hands and minds can achieve when driven by care, precision, and belief. Royce started with nothing but his determination and his love for machines, and what he created has touched people across generations. From kings to engineers, from drivers to pilots, the influence of his work continues. Rolls-Royce today is not just about speed or luxury. It is about mastery. It is about discipline, and it is about never accepting good enough. That is the real story of how a poor boy created Rolls-Royce. Not with gold or power, but with patience, excellence, and an unshakable vision of what machines and people can become when they strive for the very best. From telegram boy to engineering legend, Henry Royce's journey reminds us that the road to greatness is rarely smooth, but it's always worth taking. Rolls-Royce was never just a company. It became a symbol of excellence, of commitment to craft, and of never compromising on quality. And behind every powerful engine, every silent drive, and every polished curve lives the legacy of a man who believed that anything rightly done is noble. If this story inspired you, let us know in the comments. Which part of Henry Royce's journey did you find most powerful? And don't forget, on this channel, every story is not just for listening, but for learning. Subscribe and join us again as we bring you more real stories that make your English stronger and your world bigger.